Hello everyone, I hope all is well. I'm happy that you're joining me. Please remember to hit that subscribe button and subscribe to this channel. I've produced a lot of content, and this is for educators, parents, and those thinking about diversity, inclusion, equity, having a sense of belonging, and so forth. Because in this presentation, I'm going to talk about education, but I'm not going to use the word diversity, inclusion. I'm not going to use equity. I'm not going to use having a sense of belonging. I'm not going to use those troublesome words as deemed troublesome by certain political leaders and individuals in our society. Rather, I'm going to present a case for us to remove the barriers to the curriculum, or barriers to programs, or barriers to in-class sessions by looking at one thing: access to the curriculum or access to that program. Now let's get started. When we talk about access to a program, it is saying that a student can access the resources, the classroom, everything there. When we talk about barriers, the barriers prevent the student from learning. So therefore, it's not about what we have been talking about for the longest while or what our political leaders are involved in. And notice I'm not saying those words. That access to the curriculum or what students learn at university can be limited when the barriers for access is not removed. And the first thing we have to think about is equal access to the curriculum is vital in fostering social mobility, reducing inequality, and promoting economic growth in our society. Because if individuals are not able to learn, then they cannot be employed. And of course, that has a positional ripple effect on social services, as individuals can establish in several reports that have been done. Within this conversation, I want to identify and analyze some of the barriers. Notice I said some, because I can't deal with all of these barriers. So let's get on as we explore some of these barriers. There can be socio-economic barriers. For example, income inequality. Income inequality can limit students' access to resources such as textbooks, technology, extracurricular activities, and so forth. And this can affect their performance. Now, in a situation where you have income inequality, we need to make the adjustments because we're talking about equality. Notice I've used the word equality. Equality in my context means what I want for myself, I want for you. That's about equality. I'm not bringing in those words that have been causing problems. Then, as we look at socioeconomic barriers, we can also look at students who are from lower socioeconomic background. It doesn't matter the color of the student. Regardless of the color of the student, they can be from a low socioeconomic background and face very challenging situations, leading them to have decreased motivation, lower self-expectations. Educational attainment and parental involvement is another aspect. Parents' educational attainment plays a significant role, as the research will say, in shaping students' academic success. I would also say that parents' expectations, support, and involvement in their child's education is important. Another barrier could be the geographical location of the school itself. And there are studies to show that rural and remote areas may have limited access to specialized programs and services to ensure that students are all taken care of. Notice I've not used the words that are creating problems because I want to avoid these words, because I want individuals to understand that the barriers are not associated with the words that we're using. We just need to ensure that we have a playing field that talks about equality for all. That's all we wanted. And that's all we still want, rather than having these variables creating problems, as individuals will see. We have to learn to write in such a way that we're talking about equality if these words are going to be problematic for those who are funding our educational programs. We have to understand language and cultural barriers because we're one. So therefore, we have to understand how to ensure that we plan to ensure that the training materials that are being used are able to be accessible by everyone using them. So we have to understand the need to ensure that those who are using the content that we're providing in the curriculum have access, and that the language is not a barrier. I like that. Have access and that language is not a barrier. And by doing that, we're ensuring that we allow them to be a part of what we're doing. When we look at barriers to the curriculum, we have to understand that not all students are at the same level. Some will need to have special attention. We have to understand that there will be someone, or maybe more than one individual, who will require special attention. Some students will have a statement, others will not. but we have to plan accordingly to ensure that we are able to identify and be proactive to ensure that the students learn in our class. We must not limit our specialization just to those who are being affected or who have a statement, but we should plan accordingly to ensure that all individuals have access to that curriculum. The reality is, in our society today, mental health and someone's well-being can affect them accessing the curriculum. Mental health has become a very prominent issue in our society among our students, and we must address them by ensuring students are not affected in such a way that they cannot perform. We have to provide the service necessary, because students who are not able to access because of mental health issues will of course have a lower achievement, and of course the dropout rates will increase. In our school, we have to understand that mental health is important, as I stated before, and we must bring about an awareness to empower students and staff to recognize and address these issues when they occur. I would say that we have to nurture people around us, because if we don't nurture them and they have no sense of being part of that environment, then that creates problems. We have to also understand if a student is not resilient and does not have the coping mechanism, then they might have limited academic success. Therefore, if these issues that I just mentioned are addressed, then we increase access to the curriculum. But one of the things that I really am somewhat frustrated with is the policy and sometimes fundraising barriers, funding barriers. Government policies and regulation can act as a barrier to the curriculum, and we can see that taking place. And as a matter of fact, sometimes policies are designed and they do not address those individuals who need support, and it hinders them and creates barriers to them not being able to access what they need to make themselves a better person for tomorrow, or to equip themselves to be better citizens for tomorrow. In order to ensure that there is access to the curriculum, we must prioritize the resources to ensure that all students are able to get the necessary support and opportunities to succeed. Although I talked about the barriers, I think we can remove some of these barriers. We can collaborate between policymakers, educators, and stakeholders in understanding what it takes to remove some of these barriers. And we must work closely with educators, parents, and the community members to address these barriers that have been identified in this presentation. We need to allocate resources strategically within the construct of ensuring that every child has access to the curriculum, ensuring that all students have the opportunity to succeed academically. It's all about, you want your child to succeed, so you should also allow another child to succeed. We need to understand that there is going to be a need for educators to be engaged in professional development. There should also be ongoing training and resources that will equip educators with the tools to identify, and I think it's so important, to identify some of these issues students will encounter: mental health, they might have special education needs, and so forth. And I want to say there's a need for community engagement and parental involvement. Even at the university level, you need parents to encourage your children, and this will also promote a partnership between the university and the school, or in the K-12 school, the same. Local communities can provide additional resources for students and support students in reaching their goals. As a matter of fact, if we have the support of the community, parents, and policymakers, what a wonderful place this would be, rather than fighting over key terms, right? Or key words. When we collectively work together in removing some of these barriers, we contribute to the overall success of course, all students. You notice I went through this conversation or this little discussion without touching on some troublesome words: equity, inclusion, diversity, having a sense of belonging, allyship, and so forth. I avoided those terms because at this stage, if those terms are going to create additional barriers to the curriculum, I'm not going to use them, because I'm all about equality. So if we address these barriers and remove these barriers, what a wonderful place it would be. We can work collaboratively together in promoting equal access to education for all students, regardless of the color. And I'm thinking if we get this understanding clear, then some of these barriers will be removed and we will have a better education system, one that is about equality, one that will allow everyone to reach their full potential. However, segments in our society try to hijack equality by attacking certain words. Let's get back to the basics. Let's talk about equality, and let us remove the barriers that will limit individuals from accessing that curriculum, that program, that lesson as it relates to the concept of equality. That's all for now.